So you started in 239. Was anything hard for you in first phase? Before Hell Week, let's say.
Honestly, where I kind of paid was, I was better, but I still came like highly immature. So like these officers are telling me what to do, and I'm like, why do you know better than me? And so I'm gonna save everybody figuring it out. I was raised an only child, and so I was by myself, and so I had a little opposition to authority, and so that was a steep learning curve. And so in 3.9 it wasn't bad because I was so like shell shocked. Like all of a sudden I went, I'm kind of this in shape kid, and then all of a sudden I very much wasn't. Like where my weakness was running. Like I was the goon squad guy in first phase. Like in boot camp, only reason that I made the screener was I failed the run the first time, and when I came back I had a buddy in my boot camp class that was a good runner, and he had failed to swim. And I was like, will you pace me? And so he paced me, and I passed with like an 11 minutes out of like an 11:30, or it was like 11:30 out of 12. And so I got to buds, and that was like my Achilles heel.
It's weird because you're built like a runner.
Oh, yeah.
How tall are you?
6'1".
Yeah, you're like long, lean. You look like you should be able to freaking haul ass.
Oh, by the end of buds, I was top 10%.
Okay. Check.
But showing up, like I said, in North Dakota, it was cold. You didn't run a lot, and I also I didn't really know how to run. So when I was in first phase, I had my roommate, came from Colorado, and he was this like high-level long-distance runner. And he would watch me run, and he's like, dude, your form sucks. He's like, you run like a sprinter runs. Lots of arms, lots of legs. And so he basically taught me how to run distance, where it's like keep your hands down by your waist, like cut movement down outside of what like your legs are running. And I credit him, and unfortunately he quit.
Yeah, I was going to say I was going to ask you, did he make it? And my prediction would be no.
Oddly enough, he got stress fractures the day before Hell Week, and he rolled out. And so he came back, ended up quitting in pre-phase. I think he just knew too much. But yeah, so anyway, he taught me to run, and that got me up to speed.
And then you get into, so the only challenge you had was running, and then you get into Hell Week, and how'd that work out?
Well, no. So before running, the challenge I had, the 50 meter underwater. And so I don't know what it was. Like I had this block. Like I got in, we do the 25, no big deal. In the 50 I got in, and I made it about 25 and almost died. And the instructor looks at me, I get out, and he's like, Matt, you have possibly the worst underwater form I've ever seen. Because you've got to do like a breaststroke, but you got to drag. And I was like kicking. I was trying to do it fast. So I was just like burning oxygen. And so you have a few times to try, and I'm failing all these times. And on the weekends, I'm going to the pool. They don't let you do the 50 underwater at the Navy pool because they don't want you passing out. So I'm doing like all these 25s, and finally it's the last time. And these three guys get in, and I just step in front of them because I'm like, I don't care, friends. You're not going to fail me today. Like, I don't want to see anybody fail. It's not getting in my head. So I get down, I do my 50, I pass. Obviously no big deal.
What was like the transition that you did in your head?
It was not moving. It was being comfortable, not moving. You do the
you just glide. You need to glide more.
The glide, and that was kind of like the thing that triggered. And so I did the glide. I was as deep as possible, and it went fine. And every single dude behind me failed. And I was like, and that's why, like, unapologetic. I stepped in front. I'm like, you're not failing in front of me today. I don't want that mental thing. So yeah. So then, fast forward. I get into Hell Week. Hell Week's fine, but I'm a skinny dude. And so I started to kind of shut down where like I would eat, but I wouldn't drink. And so I would drink water only when I was thirsty, but I was so cold. I wasn't drinking a lot of water. And
you ever heard that? When I started, like when we do winter warfare type stuff, and people would say, you need to drink more water when it's cold. And I'm just like, no, that can't be true, bro. That cannot be true. Because when it's hot out, bro, I drink water like crazy. And when it's cold out, I barely drink water. And so that's probably and I think it's just psychological. Like you don't feel sweat, you're shivering. You don't feel like drinking freaking cold water. And so maybe that played a role.
Oh, 100%. And then it does things like physiologically inside your body. And so I wasn't drinking. And then we did the hard sand demo pit run, where it's like just a quick run and back. It's not supposed to be a hard evolution. It was before Chow, and I was dead last. And I hadn't been dead.
How far into the Hell Week is this?
This was
Is this like
Monday.
Oh, so it's
Monday
early
night.
in Hell
It's
Week.
early. Like
Okay.
it's early. And so it's Monday night. And I just can't, like, I can't keep up. Like, you're digging, and I, you know, like when you dig harder, you can run a little faster. Like, I physically can't do it. And so because I was late, they're like, we're going to do it again because of Matt, you know? And so they run again, and now I'm farther behind. And they're like, oh, we got a weakness. We found, you know, like he can't, you know, and so hold. And so we get beat as a class. I'm not quitting. And so I got pulled aside by an instructor, and I got put on the decon showers. And dude, he put the boots to me. Like, I'm on the floor. I'm jackhammering. Like, I'm like, you know, I'm making deals with God. I'm like, God, I'm ready. I'm not going to quit, but if you want to take me, it's time. Like, I'm okay with it. Like, I'm fine. And so I'm not quitting. And finally, you know, we go into med checks, and they're like, hey, check him out, because I'm going to get more. And I knew something changed as they put a blanket on, and they put me in the pulse ox. And then all of a sudden I went from one corpsman to 3 doctors. And I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden I started getting food. And then they started warming me up. And an instructor pops in, and they're like, hey, is he coming back? And they're like, no, he's on the first ambulance out. And I think my core temp went down to like 92. And then my pulse ox was in the 80s. And what happened was I got SIPE, swimmer's-induced pulmonary edema. And so my lungs were filling up. And so one of my lungs was like, I think like almost half full.
Damn, dude.
And I remember when I got to Balboa, it was funny because I was so jacked up, and I was in the ER, and these nurses were awesome. And they were looking at me, and they're like, what the hell happened to this guy? And so, and, you know, I know it, like, I just went with an ambulance. There's no one there to explain, like, hell what's going on. And so I get it, and they're like, hey, they're doing the pulse ox and all over again. I'm having all these doctors are kind of panicking because, like, things are going wrong. I'm not breathing. And I remember they come to me, and they're like, hey, we need to give you a catheter. And I was like, I don't know what that meant. And so what would happen is I would keep falling asleep as they were talking to me. And so, like, they're like, hey, we're going to, you know, put a needle in your arm. And I'm like, cool. I'd fall asleep, and they would poke me, and I wouldn't notice. And she's like, hey, we're going to put a catheter in. And I'm like, cool. And I fell asleep. And then, so she came to put the catheter, and I woke up like somebody scared a cat. And I sat straight up, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. And she was like, no, you said it was okay. I was like, no, I'll do anything. And I started like pleading, and I started like making deals. I was like, you can't do this. And she's like, no, it's going to be fine. And I was like, please don't. And I was like, you know, I was like a kid. And she was great. This nurse was great. She kind of calms me down, and they put it in, and it's horrible. It is horrible getting a catheter put in.
I've never had it, so.
Yep. And so
like
I still remember to this day, when she put the catheter in, after it was in, I had my head, I was sweating, and she just rubbed my hair. She just came up to the bed, and she just rubbed my hair, and she was just like
you were a 5-year-old.
It was the most mom move a nurse has ever done to me. And I was so like unhappy, just like this unhappy little kid. And she's like, are you okay? She's like, here, it's fine. You're fine. And so the worst thing was, though, I spent a week in the hospital, and I knew things were wrong because, like, I would have like Navy people coming out of uniform, and they would like quiz me what happened. And they're like, hey, did this happen during surf torture? They would use the wrong words. I didn't know who they were. And so I'm like defending butts. You know? I'm like, no, that didn't happen, you know. And so I'm protecting him. And I remember, and it must have been an officer as an adult. I know this now. He came in, and like my little girlfriend was sitting beside the bed, and he was like, they would come in twice, and I'd have to blow into this like mechanism where you have to float this ball and kind of work my lungs back out. And he's like, so, hey, how do you have to get better? And I told him I'd blow in. He's like, so when do you do it? And I was like, oh, when the nurse tells me to do it. And he's like, so you wait for the nurse to come in? And he kind of started to grill me on the spot. And I still don't know who this guy is to this day, but he was like kind of like being kind of a dick. And I remember I started sweating because, you know, I'm a buzz and I don't know who that guy is. And my girlfriend at the time was like, who is this mofo? And anyway, he ends up leaving. And so I get out of the hospital. I get a ride back. You know, no one's there to pick me up. So I wait. Like the duty driver comes and picks me up. And the most painful thing I remember, I was sitting in Bud's medical and the Hell Week class secures. So all my friends are done. And I see them and they look horrible and they're all beat up and they're cut up. And I'm sitting there and they just finished Hell Week. And it was so painful to like watch those guys. And so, yeah, I'll never forget that.
How long did it take you to recover? Did you get rolled one class?
I got rolled one class.
Okay,
I was
so
right
that's
in.
not too bad.
And it wasn't like.
Did you recover physically where you were like, all right, I can pass runs now?
Oh yeah,
like,
and
okay.
and the medical was super cool. They're like, so hey, the odds of this happening. We went by. They're like, hey, how much were you drinking? And I was like, I don't know. They're like, gauge it. And I was like, maybe 1 cup over like the 36 hours. And he's like, oh my god. Mm-hmm. And they're explaining is like when you're cold, the drinking the water actually like I guess not having water is one of the things that like helped it happen. Mm-hmm. And so they're like drinks tons. So when I did the next class, I rolled into the next class, and that was like Leif was the OIC. And when I was in Hell Week, I drank water like it was my job.
Mm-hmm.